and Mark talk about youth selection. It's either going to be the first in a multi-part series as we try and communicate better, or a failed attempt in learning as we didn't work out. But as I say, we're trying to explore different ways of communicating and sharing the conversations that we have in the office, the conversations we have with coaches. You know, I'm really fortunate I get to sit and listen to all this sort of stuff, and it really challenges us that we can't let more people in terms of the conversations we have in the world. So we're just having a crack at this now. Hopefully it won't last more than about 5 minutes, and we really want to get everybody's feedback in terms of what we've shared. But essentially, Jack's going to ask me some questions and we're going to talk about the answers, and they're, broadly speaking, some of the questions that he gets asked, and the ops staff get asked all the time. So we're talking, generally speaking, here around youth selection, and sort of not in detail around any of the individual classes.
Perfect. Thanks, Mark. Welcome, everyone. Right, so we'll kick off. So what are the basic rules of policy we follow? So
yeah, I mean, it's laid out in the documents, of course, which are dry and legalese, as it were. But the principle is in the majority of cases, squads are selected in the autumn, sort of September, October time, and they run for 12 months and they're reviewed quarterly. So we like to be able to bring additional sailors in as we see them grow and develop. Then at Easter, after the Youth Nationals, for most of the classes, but not all, we select summer teams. And that's essentially us focusing our support around a smaller number of sailors so that we can better support them in competition over the summer. You don't lose your squad place if you don't make the team, but the reality is that we are focusing more support on a smaller number at that point in time. And we are aware, and it is a challenge, that those squad sailors won't get much in return at that point in time, but you don't lose your place. You know, you still retain that status, that credibility, that reward for your efforts and endeavours, and the coaches know that too. So it allows the coaches to really focus in on the sailors that we've identified in teams, but also keep an eye on those sailors in the squad and keep supporting their progression if they can.
And I think that's a really good point, Mark. It does sometimes feel like a deselection for sailors that were in that squad for, you know, in the winter, and then you don't get that summer team letter. It can feel like that. However, it's not. You've still got that status, and that's still something that sits on your CV, and also you can still reach out to those coaches, you know, if you're not at the events anyway. So we get asked this question quite a lot, and I think it's important to state this and just give a bit of understanding around why we have certain numbers on our selection policy. So what drives the numbers for the boats and boards, Mark?
Yeah, so it's laid out in the appendix to the policy, the bit that people really need to look at, and they're set by a number of factors, but included but not limited to resource. You know, we only have a finite amount of coaches and money to support that. And the size of the active class, if the class is small and we select too much, then we risk undermining it. And the underpinning is the standard of sailors available to us as well. I think that's also really important. But alongside that, we're having a constant conversation with the coaching team, and we try and also have a conversation with the committee of the class as well. Not always so successful in that space. It's something for us to work on, but it's definitely, you know, talking to the coaches in terms of what's coming through, where are the sailors at that are coming through, and what's in there, what's best for them. You know, overall, it is a performance program, but if the standard is low and coming out of lockdown, you know, and the long period of COVID, lack of sailing, that's been very difficult. So we have to be pretty open in terms of what that looks like.
Yeah, no, definitely, and like you say, we are trying to speak to classes around what would then leave a substantial group for that class coach to lead and have the right environment. And again, we're always thinking about what's best for the sailor. What group would that sailor best thrive in, or get the best support? So next one, what are we looking for in that selection?
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, what I've said gives me the sort of dry sort of headline stuff, but what we're really looking for, and what drives those coaching conversations, those conversations in the office, is a number of factors. Coachability. You know, how good is your sailor? How good are you as a sailor or a rider at learning? How good are you at taking on feedback? How sophisticated or mature are you at managing disappointment and success? Passion. You know, what really is driving you? Is it that pure love of the sport? And Oh, that's our 5-minute warning. That's quite interesting, isn't it? I think we'll leave that in, but that's setting out the challenge of how we can keep this tight. But anyway, we'll keep going. And what we really want to see is an underlying and deep fascination in everything associated with sport. We want to see sailors talking to their peers, talking to their parents, talking to their coaches, talking to us around the rig setup, the conditions, the weather. They're really exploring the decision making that we make. At the youth nationals, I absolutely love it when I can get in amongst the sailors and explain the challenges that we've got in terms of delivering the event and relate it to their challenges in terms of racing in the event. I love it when I see sailors fiddling with their rigs and trying to understand what's going on. And I guess that's part of the rationale. If we've got too many sailors and too fewer coaches, we haven't got enough space for those conversations.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and there's definitely two different ways you could view support at a regatta, and what we're definitely aiming towards is having those real critical conversations every day, unpicking a good or a bad day and making sure that they can learn the most from it, and that takes time, and that does drive smaller ratios compared to other scenarios.
Yeah, but at an event, sailors still need the lunch carried, they still need the water carried, and coaches will do that. They will absolutely do that. And at the end of the day, if the conditions allow it, they'll chuck a line out and tow boats in and out as well. They limits of practicality and all that sort of stuff. But we never want to hear of sailors that a coach that, oh no, I'm not carrying your water, I'm not carrying your lunch. They need to organise that between themselves as a coaching team, of course. But because if you go hungry and if you go drink, all those conversations become irrelevant because you haven't got resource left.
Exactly.
So, and we're also looking at behaviours on and off the water, and team building, and how you build a relationship with your coaches, how you support that, and how you can grow and work together in a squad. And above all else, we're looking for progression. As I say, it's about learning. Can we see sailors improving throughout the course of a race, getting through a mark and moving forward? And can we see them improving over the course of a regatta? And can we spot when the conditions change by looking at the results? Because then you might see a change in performance, a step up or a step down. But again, how quickly do we get back to learning and progression?
Yeah, and I think you've summarised quite nicely there, is that we are looking for sailors that are constantly showing the right behaviours, being proactive, engaging with the support, and at the same time are becoming adaptive. Adaptive sailors, and it's not about results. It is about just making sure they're getting the processes right at youth, so we can then have adaptable sailors across all classes to move up the pathway, ideally.
Yeah, and it's not all about results at youth, except sometimes it is. And this is where it gets, getting that balance is really tricky, because we know at certain points outcome does matter. In the end, at the end. In your last year at youth at under 19, then where you finish is important. Now, it doesn't have to be a medal. That's the key thing. We know that a top 10%, top 10 is about the space you need to be in, and beginning to show that you can lead a race out, win races and control a position. Those things are important. But fourth or third, how you handle that environment is more important. But top 10 or top half, that does matter in that last youth year. And likewise, when you move into your Olympic class, if that's your journey, as opposed to keelboat or all the other many places we would love you to go. If that's your journey, then at under 21 or under 23, depending on the Olympic class, then you do need to be in your last year in that space, in that fleet, in the medal space. So under 21, laser standard, or ILCA 7, ILCA 6, old mistake. We would expect you to be able to contend for a medal in that space, to have a decent chance of progressing. So results do matter at the end, but it's about getting there and being patient on that journey.
Yeah, getting there in the right way, and we know that around the results being important at that point in the stage and age, because historically we've seen that with our sailors that have been successful then in the Olympic classes, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, we see it across the piece, and I think, Jack, we've actually talked for quite a lot longer than we intended. So my suggestion is we wrap this up for now. We've just touched on some of the basics, just about, I think.
Yeah.
And we'll share it with you all. And like I say, we welcome your feedback, especially, is this the right format? Is there a better format? And what questions would you like us to answer? And we'll see where it takes us.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you. Thanks all.
Cheers.